Hello and welcome. I'm Rachel Amaday, and I am here today. I wanted to do a video because I'm going to end up hopefully posting this to YouTube as well. I have some video responses to those who are critiquing the movie The Sound of Freedom, and I thought, well, I should send this out to my Substack people first. You all might have some ideas about this as well. You might be seeing some conversations starting up around this movie. First and foremost, The Sound of Freedom is a movie that Angel Studios ended up releasing it. It is based on Tim Ballard's story. Tim Ballard is the founder of OUR. It's an organization that rescues trafficked children, sexually trafficked children all over the world. And it's based on some of his work, which means based on means that creative licenses are taken. It's not 100%. It's not a documentary, although Tim does have a documentary about his work coming out here pretty soon, which will hopefully and likely put all the naysayers to bed, basically. But Jim Caviezel plays Tim Ballard's character in the movie, and I am recommending that adult believers see this film. I do not think that this is a film for children. It is very hard to watch. And it's very well done. There's nothing in it that's visually R-rated, like nothing in it that should be scared of. You shouldn't be scared to see this film. It's just the content is really hard. It's hard to face this particular evil going on in our society and all over the world. And it's hard to face the fact of how many Americans purchase children and use people like slaves this way. It's hard. It's hard to face that. And it's hard to face that there are people you walk by in your society that are viewing images and consuming this stuff in such a demonic way, but it's happening. And I think it really is the issue of our times. You know, when we read in scripture, we see that Paul is talking about the issues of his day. You've got people coming into the church, the early church in Acts, coming from a pagan culture, coming from cults, coming from really, really horrible activities before their gods. And Paul trying to hammer out, what are we supposed to do with these people? What rules should they follow first? What laws of God should they follow first? And how are they going to get taught? And how are they going to get integrated? It's a difficult challenge. Not to mention there was huge debate at the time around circumcision, and it was a cultural debate between the Roman society and the Jews. It wasn't just the Jews. This was a big deal to the Romans as well. I talk about that in past podcasts, but so Paul talked about the issues of his day, and he talked about what to do with them and how to hammer them out. We have some issues of our time happening that we need to discuss, and we need to discuss them righteously and rightly. After seeing the film Sound of Freedom, I really likened it to something like Uncle Tom's Cabin, that came out before the Civil War. There were things going on, especially people in the North, they weren't aware of. They didn't really understand what slavery looked like. And a lot of times they just tried to pretend like that stuff wasn't really happening, or it was fallacy. It wasn't true. It couldn't be happening, right? It's too awful to face. And yet, a book like Uncle Tom's Cabin, based on observations of things going on, really opened a lot of people's eyes and assisted in changing the political will in our nation. I think Sound of Freedom could be something that does the same thing. Now, you should just know that in the Bible, God heavily judges nations that enact slavery. He just does. He doesn't like it. They don't get to do it forever. He hates it. And you see this in the story of the Exodus. The Jews had been enslaved for a long time, and God was finally like, I'm done, and I have no problem punishing Egypt to the fullest extent of her bloodlust. And I don't want that for the United States, and I don't want that for the people of the United States. And I know that believers here, Christians here, hate slavery and hate the trafficking of human beings. But they haven't been really quite aware of what's been going on, I don't think. Now, I've been aware of this issue for over 10 years now, more heavily aware of it for over 10 years now. And just that, in being a musician, I get asked to do charity events for organizations raising money to rehabilitate people out of trafficking. I've been in so many different churches with so many different organizations that do lots of different types of charitable work. And I've had opportunities to sit down with these people and ask them hard questions. Where is this happening? How is it happening? Who is it happening to? Why is it happening? How much money? How many people? All of these questions. And to every single time I've sat down with people and had these conversations, I've had the same response as I had to the movie. My heart aches because it's always worse than what you think it is. It's always worse than what you hope. You can stick your head in the sand for a certain amount of time, but eventually it all comes back to bite you in the butt. And I think we are having that experience right now in the United States, where we have allowed through, and this is a political issue, but it's just true, through an open border where human trafficking takes place, where the slave trade takes place, and through policies where there's no political will to rescue these people. And there's no political will because there's no money. And that's the sad truth. There's not big lobby groups that have tons of funding for slaves. From slaves. It's just not happening. And so politicians haven't been interested in fixing this issue because there's more money going into American coffers from the slave trade than there ever would be if we ended it. And that is the sad reality of the slave system that we live in. But this was the same reality that was happening during the Civil War. And it was Christians and believers who understood the Bible all over the nation, who hated slavery, and who decided enough was enough. And it didn't matter that there was going to be a high cost. And there was a very high cost to this country to end slavery. But it was worth it. It was righteous. And it spurred the end of the slave trade for the entire Western world. And it is something that we could do again today, but we have to have the will to do it. And we have to find the politicians with the will to do it. And we have to give the money to do it. And so this is a hard issue, but it's why I want you to see the movie, because you need to understand this reality, this fact that this is taking place. Now, I want to deal with some of the critiques of the movie because they are mostly based in logical fallacy territory. Let's start with some of the critiques that I've seen online. Almost none of them critique the actual content of the film. Some of them say, well, this never happened, but it's only based on a true story. The fact that this particular story with these people's names maybe didn't happen doesn't have anything to do with the fact that these things don't actually happen. They do happen. And they happen a lot. There are a lot of child slaves globally. And in fact, we have more slaves, human slaves globally now than we ever did during the height of the slave trade and the Civil War. That is the unfortunate fact. So you can dislike that, you can't confirm the exact details of the story in this movie, but it has nothing to do with the reality of the slave trade. This movie is portraying something that is real and that is happening. So I don't like, I think most of these critiques are they're silly critiques, but we'll start with the fact, ad hominem attacks. This is a logical fallacy, ad hominem or appeal to authority. Jim Caviezel doesn't know enough to be promoting a movie like this, or Tim Ballard hasn't done that work the way that he said. And so this movie isn't correct, or Tim Ballard's a bad person. And so you shouldn't support this movie. Or the people funding the movie are bad people, and so you shouldn't believe what the movie says. These are all logical fallacies. You're attacking the person instead of attacking the content of the film, and that is problematic. And so anytime you're having a debate, don't fall into one of those logical fallacies. Talk about ideas. Don't start attacking the people. Ideas are always above people, right? We understand that. People make mistakes. People do bad things. Tim Ballard's not a perfect human, neither is Jim Caviezel. So attacking them isn't going to get you anywhere with an ideas debate. And what we're talking about is the idea, the fact that human trafficking does happen and that we want to bring awareness to that. So that's the first logical fallacy that I've seen out there. There's another very strange critique happening around this film, and it is this concept that somehow this film is going to be used to promote microchipping children. Now, this isn't in the film, really. It has nothing to do with the film, really, but the concept is that people are going to be so afraid they're going to want to track their children wherever they go. The reality is, if you're thinking about that, which is a terrible idea, don't do this, but if you're thinking about it, there have been studies done on this already, and the fact is, if you microchip children, it would be worse off for kids because those systems can be hacked by bad people. And now they know where your children are at all times. They know if they're at a playground. They know if they're alone. They know if they're at home. They know, I mean, you would never microchip your children if you actually wanted to keep them from this sort of a thing. And so that's just a dumb idea. It's a bad idea. By the way, I don't think Christians would fall for that. I mean, if all of a sudden Sound of Freedom was being used as promotion for microchipping, you would laugh that off and go, this is ridiculous. Of course, we're not going to do that. And so I don't think Christians are going to fall for that. Don't fall for that. It's a weird critique. I don't understand it, but it is out there. Sure. I think that the elites do want to microchip kids, but just because they want to do that doesn't change the fact that they are using children and making a lot of money on this stuff. So it doesn't change the content of the film, and it doesn't change the realities going on with human trafficking. It's not a good argument, right? So we have to kind of move on from that argument. The final one that I think is silly and ridiculous is, oh, they're making so much money on this. They just did this to make money. I don't understand this argument. It comes up a lot with Christians. Like, Christians go after each other. If a Christian ever makes a great piece of art or ever does something good and they make money on it, there's a bunch of other Christians out there who are so mad that they made money. Good grief, people. Listen, money is a tool. The love of money is what leads to evil, right? If your pursuit is only money. But if you make a great piece of art that really impacts people and people want to pay for it, you now have a tool. The great thing about this film is it's an incredible tool to spur some change in people, to help people understand the issue. And it's so beautifully done and well made, it can make them a lot of money, which will help them create more great films for Christians, which we want that. You can't go out and critique Hollywood and say how much you hate what Disney is doing and then be so pissed that Christians make a movie that's making money. You can't have it both ways. Don't try to play that game. I hate that game. I want them to make money. I want them to make more of these films. And I'm pretty sure a lot of that money will go back into organizations like OUR or what Tim Ballard is doing now, which is called the Spear, which will help trafficked people. I don't know why you don't want that. I don't get this argument, but I don't think it's a good one. And so I wanted to come and talk to the believer out there who knows their Bible, who knows that Yeshua came to free the captives, knows that his job is to free people from slavery, and knows that he has made his church to be doing the same work. I want to encourage you to see the movie. Don't be discouraged by the naysayers. See it, understand the issue, and there's a couple of things that we can do right away that will change the game in the United States when it comes to trafficked people. Get educated on pornography. Pornography has infiltrated every part of our society. It feels like the media is just pornographic in a way it never has been in the past, and it's leading especially young men into addiction and into use and abuse of their own bodies and of others. And here's how that works out. A lot of the people that end up in pornographic material have been trafficked. They were young when they started. They were kids. They were blackmailed. They were drug addicted. They were used and abused. And then they ended up in this industry and they don't know how to get out of it. So when pornography use is taking place, too often it's taking place at the expense of human slaves. We need to educate our churches about this. We need to educate our young men about this and our young women about this. Because, a lot of people say, oh, pornography is harmless. There's nothing harmless about it. It is a trade that makes billions of dollars globally, that uses slaves, that steals lives. And by the way, in the Torah, in God's law, the penalty for kidnapping someone and stealing their life is death. That's how seriously God takes it. He wants them hanged. He wants them stoned. You're done. It's why Yeshua in the New Testament says it would be better for you to go ahead and throw yourself into the ocean and drown yourself with a millstone around your neck than to hurt one of these young ones. God hates this industry. He hates pornography. He hates what it does to the people that are in it, and he hates what it does to the people that buy it. As a church, we need to take a stand. No more pornography among our congregants, among those who call themselves believers. We don't care what it takes. We don't care how much therapy we have to pay for our young men. We don't care that we have to throw out computers and get rid of cell phones. We are not going to be involved in the slave trade any longer. We have to become abolitionists in our own home and then in our church communities. And that takes some willpower and some people willing to start talking about this issue in a real way. And honestly saying, what is it going to take? If my son is using pornography, am I willing to throw his phone away, to take his computer out of his room, and to start sending him to somebody who can help him be free? The answer should be yes. And yes. And yes. Because this is the most wicked industry on the planet. And it is the issue of our times. And I think Paul would have this discussion with his churches if he were here. Something else that we can do immediately is find your local organizations that help rehabilitate people. Why? It is expensive to rehabilitate trafficked human beings. It costs a lot of money to provide them food and a home and a bed and therapy and help them get reinstituted into society. And there are so few organizations that do it and do it well, and they don't have a lot of money. But this should be the job of the church. It belongs to us. We have to do this. I know that the satanic system and a lot of the political systems that we're under right now, they're a pyramid scheme, okay? They are Satan's at the top. Nobody else gets to be up there, and everybody else is a slave to that system. There's not a lot of political will to do this, but there is will among the people of God. So I would love for us to find politicians that we believe in who want to police the border so that there's not a slave trade at the border anymore, and want to fund organizations that end this and that we stop being run by the drug cartels. I know that there are politicians out there that believe in that, but they don't often receive the votes, and it's hard to find them. And then when they get elected, they don't talk about it because they're going to lose their position if they try to spend all their money in that area, because there's no money in it. But this belongs to the church. This belongs to us. And so we need to be the people of God on the earth, the light and the salt for the people in the darkest cages, in the darkest places. Like I said, it starts in your own home. It starts with your use of media. That's where it starts. You put an end there. If every Christian man and woman put an end to pornography in their own homes, this industry would lose masses of money and power. There are first steps that cost you only a fight with your husband or your kids, right? Or your wife. That's all it's going to cost you. Now, that might seem like a lot. It might seem like an emotional toll, but it's worth it. Get it out of your house. Get the garbage out of your home and out of your mind, right? Find an organization to give to. They need your money, and they need your help, and they need your voice. Talk to your pastor about preaching on pornography. Do not put this issue aside. This issue belongs to be discussed within the church building, in the church walls, and it needs to be something that believers are willing to help men be free from. Now, women are having this addiction now too at higher levels. Help everybody be free from. I say men because it's majority men. But everybody needs, women and men need to be free from this. We need to get on our knees and pray. This is a stronghold, a spiritual stronghold. There's a principality over this thing that is very powerful. We need to get on our knees and pray as a community together on this issue, about our local, our school districts, our cities, our states, and our nation need to be prayed over specifically on this issue. Right? Specifically. And we need to vote accordingly. Why do we hate children in this country so much? I'm not even joking. People are trying to kill and destroy these people from before they're even born through their entire high school educational experience, through college, and as adults. Everything is about death. We have become such a death culture. We're killing babies before they're born through abortion. We're not taking care of them when they are born to mothers who need help. We're putting them in school systems that teach them wickedness and evil regarding their bodies and their souls. We're putting them through a college education that is indoctrination into ideas that will lead them into immorality and lead them into death-like behaviors, and then teaching them how to kill their own children so that they can be free sexually. Why do we hate our kids so much? That we would let this happen and then we would ignore children being trafficked. We have a death culture. You don't think that needs a lot of prayer? That needs a lot of prayer. We need to start praying as a nation over this. This is the issue of our times. And so I wanted to do a podcast today for you regarding this issue. When you go out and you see people critiquing this movie, just remember your list of logical fallacies, pull that out. Are they using them? And if you're interested in getting to know the people behind the film, go do that research. That's fine. But it should not change your call to go and help rescue and free slaves in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, start in your house, start in your home. Know what your kids are watching, know what they're using on social media, know who is talking to them, and understand that when you participate in this stuff, you are participating in a slave trade, and that belongs to Satan. I don't want to give him my money or my time. Amen? So I hope you enjoyed this today. I hope this helps. Share this with other believers. We need to get the message out about this film and about this issue and about the change that needs to be made. Share the movie. Send people to the film and share this discussion about the critiques about the movie, because we need to have these discussions. We need to do this better in our nation. And it's time for Christians to wake up. Yeah, I know you got a lot on your plate. I know you're just trying to find your kids a good school. I know. That's why I say start in your house. You get your house clean. If we all get our houses clean, boy, do we change culture, right? Boy, do things change. You start giving your money to godly films like that, and you stop giving your money to the ungodly ones, you change culture. It doesn't have to be huge. It's in all these small things, these small changes that are made, that we can make a gigantic difference. And then when you pray at night, you pray for this issue specifically. You get a prayer group together, you pray for this issue specifically. We will see change. I'm Rachel Amadei. I hope you've enjoyed this. I will be back. I'm very excited. I have a great interview coming up this week, so be on the lookout for that.